this lesson, you'll improve all areas of your English, and you'll do that by reading a news article. And if you can understand this article, your English is excellent. Welcome back to JForrest English. Of course, I'm Jennifer. Now let's get started.
Our headline: the climate crisis is a health crisis, and the European region is in the hot seat. This is a pun right here. To be in the hot seat. It's an idiom and it's being used as a pun. We'll talk about that in a minute. Let's first talk about this pronunciation. Did you notice I said crisis, crisis, crisis? And did you notice here we have the climate crisis, but a health crisis? Do you understand the difference and why the is used here and a is used here? Well, the, of course, is the definite article, and it means a specific one. So the climate crisis, the one we're dealing with today, the one caused by our actions, the climate crisis. But a health crisis, the indefinite article, you can think of it as any. So it's not a specific health crisis, it's just any health crisis in general. Grammatically, you can say the climate crisis is difficult for Europe and the world, or a climate crisis is difficult for Europe. A means anyone. It could have been one 50 years ago that's over, or even one that may occur in the future. It's any. But the is specific, the one we're dealing with now. So grammatically, often both are correct, but it does change the meaning of your idea. So make sure you understand the use. Now let's get back to our idiom and our pun. The idiom is to be, which is conjugated third person singular because the subject is the European region is, it is, and then in the hot seat. So all you need to do is change the verb to be. This is an idiom. When you're in the hot seat, it means it's like a spotlight is on you, so you are under pressure to perform or respond. So that's why I asked you, do you know what this is? We'll come back to it because I wanted you to feel like you're in the hot seat. So if you're in a class of mine and there are 20 people in the class and your name is Jorge, and I say, Jorge, stand up and give me one example using the present perfect continuous. Jorge is in the hot seat. He's under pressure to perform or respond. So that's the idiom. So the European Union region is in the hot seat, under pressure to perform or respond to the climate crisis and health crisis. Now it's a pun. A pun is a play on words. So they're cleverly using this idiom because the climate's going up and the region's getting hotter. It's not funny. And sometimes you might even think, is it appropriate to make a pun given the severity of the issue? But that is the pun. And the idiom is to be in the hot seat. Don't worry about taking these notes. I summarize everything in a free lesson PDF. You can find the link in the description. Now let's keep reading. In response to escalating climate-driven health threats. The verb escalate means that something has become greater or more serious. So in this context, the climate-driven health threats. So health threats which are driven by the climate. Driven by means caused by. The reason why they exist is because of the climate. So that is driven by the climate. But here, climate driven is an adjective. Climate driven health threats. So if you take away the adjectives escalating and climate driven, the subject, which is the noun, is health threats. So in response to health threats. And then these adjectives, of course, give more information. In response to escalating climate-driven health threats, including emergencies, the WHO Regional Office for Europe launched the Pan-European Commission on Climate and Health. So this is the acronym that represents Pan-European Commission on Climate and Health. So notice in acronyms, they generally do not include articles or prepositions or adverbs. So that's how we have PECCH. So here, WHO is an acronym as well, the World Health Organization. Acronyms can be spoken as a word, like in this one, instead of saying WHO, it's WHO. But if it's not obvious what the word could be, we often just say the letters, PECCH. Now they go on and explain what this is, because most people wouldn't know, because it's relatively new. A bold new initiative to confront one of the defining health challenges of our time. And of course, that defining health challenge of our time is the climate crisis or climate change. And the defining, so here this is an adjective, it means it's a challenge that is defining us. So when people think of us in the future, when they look back on this period, they may think of climate change and how that impacted our lives. So that's how it is defining. We use this a lot for important moments in our life. We describe them as defining. So you might say graduating from college or graduating from university. So notice my gerund verb to represent the action. Graduating from college was a defining moment, because remember, defining is an adjective. So you could say a moment in my life. Well, what type of moment? You could say, and of course you would change this, an amazing moment in my life. That's true. A scary moment in my life, because now you're no longer a kid. You have to go get a job. You have to start paying taxes. It could be a scary moment in your life. But here we're using the adjective defining, a defining moment in my life. It helped shape who I am. It characterized my future. It was a symbol. So that would represent defining. One more example, becoming fluent in English. Again, our gerund verb. Becoming fluent in English was, notice this was in the past simple, because I'm assuming it already happened. This happened in your life last year, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. It doesn't matter when, but it's in the past. So you could say this is in the past as well, was a defining moment in my life. Or maybe you want to express this as a future because you feel like you're not there yet. But don't worry, that's why I'm here to help. So becoming fluent in English will be a defining moment in my life. So whether you put this in the past or the future, I'm here to help. And I'm sure this will be a defining moment in your life. So put that's right. If you're excited to become fluent, put that's right in the comments. And of course, I'm here to help you every step of the way.
Are you enjoying this lesson? If you are, then I want to tell you about the Finally Fluent Academy. This is my premium training program where we study native English speakers from TV, movies, YouTube, and the news so you can improve your listening skills of fast English, expand your vocabulary with natural expressions, and learn advanced grammar easily. Plus, you'll have me as your personal coach. You can look in the description for the link to learn more, or you can go to my website and click on Finally Fluent Academy. Now let's continue with our lesson.
The PECCH, remember this is an acronym, Pan-European. So pan means across Europe, so spanning Europe. Pan-European Commission on Climate and Health. Woo! So that's the acronym. The PECCH brings together. Now this as a subject is it, third person singular, which is why we have this S on the present simple. So always ask yourself, what's my subject? And you always have 5 options. I, you, he, she, it is considered one option, they, or we. Okay, so those are your subjects, and this is third person singular. So that's why we have this S, he, she, it. It brings together 11 commissioners from across the WHO European region. They bring a rich diversity of experience. Okay, so notice our subject changed from it brings to they bring. Why is that? Well, because now our subject is not the PECCH, it's the 11 commissioners. The 11 commissioners. A commissioner is just a government official. They bring, so that's the they, and now we have our present simple, no S, because that's only with he, she, it as a subject. They bring a rich diversity of experience at the helm of political and scientific, national and international institutions and organizations. Do you know what at the helm of means? Well, if you're into boating or sailing, you may know that the helm is the wheel. It's what steers the ship or boat. So in that context, it means in control. So you're the leader of, you're steering, you're in control of. So at the helm of. And remember that idioms require a specific use of words. So you need at, the, not a, or anything else, not the helms with an S. So it's at the helm of, and then something. At the helm of political and scientific, national and international institutions and organizations. Together, they will deliver. So again, they meaning the commissioners who are leading this group. Because remember, the C was commission. Together, they will deliver recommendations for actionable solutions. So actionable means that you're able to act on these solutions. They're not theoretical or hypothetical or grandiose. They're actionable. A more common alternative to actionable is practical solutions. But actionable is very common, especially in a business context. Perhaps not so common if I'm talking about my life and changes I want to make in my personal life. It's probably more common to use the word practical. But in a business context or a government context, you might have a meeting and someone shares an idea and you say, that's a great idea, but is it actionable? Can we act on this idea? That's a great idea, but is it actionable? So together they will deliver recommendations for actionable solutions at the intersection of health and climate. So an intersection in terms of traffic is where 2 roads, 2 streets meet. So we have health and we have climate, but at the intersection, so where they meet. And again, always pay attention to the specific words used in an expression or idiom. At the intersection of, and then you would have your 2 things, health and climate in this specific article. Let's keep going. Through its public and expert hearings. So it's, the subject is our commission, which we see here, the PECCH. So sometimes you can first use the pronoun it, before you identify the subject. But if you do that, make sure the subject is obvious or comes very quickly after. Otherwise, it can be confusing what this it represents. Through its public and expert hearings, the PECCH will also actively engage with representatives from other regions to work together on shared solutions. Now, the purpose of this beginning part through its public and expert hearings is telling you how it will do this, how it will actively engage with representatives. So engage with, in this context of simply work with, have conversations with, meet with, discussions, brainstorming, all of that represents engage with. So it will do this through its public and expert hearings. So you can write it the other way, where you take this part and you would put it after. Now, I shortened this because this part was quite long. The PECCH will engage with representatives through its hearings. So this way sounds a little more formal, a little more academic. Through its public and expert hearings, the PECCH will also actively engage with representatives from other regions to work together on shared solutions. Especially important will be the involvement of small and island member states, which are often the first to bear the brunt of the climate crisis. And again, because it's not a climate crisis, it's not any one, a specific one, the one we're dealing with today. And notice my pronunciation, the spelling and pronunciation do not match here. We have island. That's how you say it. And then you get the syllable stress correct. I said it as two separate sounds. Island, dada, island. Here is the IPA. And this is my spelling of it based on pronunciation. I find this quite helpful, but you have to find what makes sense. Even if you write out sounds in your own native language, it doesn't matter. It's just whatever it sounds like to you. So I think of I and I think of Lind, but maybe you have a different interpretation of it. But island. Now let's talk about bear the brunt of. If you bear the brunt of something, in this case, the climate crisis, you suffer or endure the worst or the most intense parts. So it's a negative expression. Here's an example in the past simple. Notice the irregular past simple. Unfortunately, because it's negative, to bear the brunt of something is negative always. You don't bear the brunt of winning the lottery. It's negative. If you do bear the brunt of winning the lottery, it means that something negative happened as a result of that seemingly positive event. Unfortunately, Sylvia bore, that's the past simple, bore the brunt of the client's anger when we miss the deadline. So maybe Sylvia is just the one who has the direct relationship with the client, and she received the worst, most intense part of the client's anger because she's the one who had to deliver the bad news to the client. Now, the present simple, the third form of the verb, which can be used in the present simple, is born. There's an E on the spelling, but the pronunciation is exactly the same as I was born. So born, but with an E for spelling. Unfortunately, Sylvia has borne, the present perfect, has borne the brunt of the client's anger. Now, because it's the present perfect, we need an unfinished timeline since the project started. Because again, Sylvia is the one who delivers the bad news to the client. Let's keep going. From reducing waste to building energy efficient facilities to saving lives through heat health early warning systems, this commission will explore a wide range of new and existing health sector solutions. And remember to find those actionable solutions, solutions you can act on. Notice the structure that they used from, and we'll just call this X. You could say from one as well, but I'll use X, X, Y, Z. So from X, and notice X is a gerund verb. It could also be a noun. Okay, so from waste reduction would be the noun, but from reducing waste. So from X and then to Y, to building, again, our gerund verb, to building energy efficient facilities, or I could use a noun, to energy efficient facilities. So that would be the noun form. Now this actually uses another to, from X to Y to Z, which can be done, but it's more common to just have from X to Y. And when you have this structure from X to Y, you're saying there's a range of activities or ideas or solutions. Even there's a range, there's a spectrum, and you're listing two things, but everything is included. And this range is often used at the beginning of a clause, a completed sentence, just to give more information. So let's review this example. I can absolutely just say, becoming fluent in English opens doors. That's a great sentence. I can make it sound more advanced by saying, from landing better jobs to confidently traveling the world. So these are two categories, jobs, travel. But it's saying everything in between as well, but without specifying it. So it implies there are many other things, many other benefits, or potentially even disadvantages, but you're only listing the two beginning and end of the range. From landing better jobs to confidently traveling the world, becoming fluent in English opens doors. So this is an excellent structure to have in your vocabulary. It will help you sound very professional and very advanced. Let's keep going. At a global level, nearly half of humanity, 3.6 billion people. So this is the number that represents nearly half of humanity. So nearly means not quite, but almost. So I was nearly late. I was almost late. So I wasn't late, but I was almost late. I was nearly late for the important meeting. And I would have borne the brunt of the client's anger. But thankfully, I wasn't late because I said nearly. Nearly half of humanity, 3.6 billion people. So notice I'm vocalizing this, saying this as point, 3.6, 3.6, not 3.6, 3.6 billion people already lives. This is an area that native speakers can even make mistakes with. We see the last thing referenced is a plural. So people is the plural of person. Many students get this wrong. One person, two people. Okay? But lives is third person singular in the present simple because the subject is half of humanity, which is a collective. So it would be it. It already lives in areas because we're viewing this as a collective. Humanity is a collective. Humanity is, not humanity are. Humanity is. It's a singular. So this part, because it's in brackets, you may also see it in dashes, doesn't affect the grammar. Now, in written English, it's easier to see the reference, but in spoken English, especially if your thought in parentheses or in dashes is quite long, it may be that you forget what your subject is. So just keep that in mind. Nearly half of humanity already lives in areas highly susceptible to climate change. Now let's review susceptible. It means that you're more likely to be affected or harmed by something. So children and the elderly were more susceptible to COVID or to colds and flus, for example. They're more likely to be affected by or harmed by. Let's keep going. Meanwhile, 80% of the population in the European region is expected to live in urban areas by 2023, which is just around the corner. So to be just around the corner means happening soon. So 2020 or 2030, excuse me, I think I said 23, 2030 is just around the corner. So you can use this with a lot. My holidays are just around the corner because it's plural. Winter is just around the corner. If you want to talk about everything you need to do to prepare, for example, for a season or a party or event or anything. So that's a great expression to add to your vocabulary. Let's continue. Making our cities and towns the front lines in the fight against climate change. Now, you may be familiar with this term because it was widely used during the pandemic, during COVID. They talked about frontline workers. Frontline workers were the ones who were where the action, the negative action was happening. So they were the most directly involved in the affected areas. So they're saying here, the cities and towns are going to be where the negative action, where the battle you can think of is happening, the front lines in the fight against climate change. So they will be the ones most affected or first to be affected as well. Let's continue. In spite of the mounting evidence of the current and projected existential threat that climate change poses to our societies, let's just stop here. So mounting evidence, mounting means growing in the sense of increasing in size. So you can see the emails in my inbox are mounting. Every day there's more and more unread emails. It's growing, increasing in size. Now, evidence is an uncountable noun, so you never add an S to this, which is why here you don't see it. Even though mounting, growing, it sounds like bigger and bigger, but evidence is uncountable. And in spite of is an alternative to despite. So disregarding or not including, not considering the mounting evidence, the growing evidence. Now you can have in spite of and then something, or you can have in spite of plus a gerund verb. For example, in spite of reviewing the mounting evidence, if you wanted to include a verb. In spite of the mounting evidence of the current and projected, so if it's projected, it means we think it will happen, but we do not know concretely because it's in the future. So that would be projected. So current, we know because they're happening now, and projected, we can plan for them or calculate them based on the information we now have, but we don't know 100% because it's in the future. Projected existential threat, so threat to our existence, our survival. That's existential. That climate change poses to our societies. Political action, including within the health sector, struggles to match the urgency. So remember, this in spite of is important because it's saying political action, where is this? Political action struggles to match the urgency. So struggles to match is like saying isn't matching the urgency, despite or in spite of the mounting evidence. So you could also replace or change, reverse that order. So this is what I mentioned with information can be between dashes or parentheses. So remember, this information can be removed and doesn't affect the grammar of the sentence. So this verb, struggles, is conjugated with political action. Political action struggles to match the urgency and scale of the response. So scale is how large the response is, the scale of the response required to keep people and the planet safe. And that's the end of the article. So what I'll do now is I'll read the article from start to finish, and this time you can focus on my pronunciation. The climate crisis is a health crisis, and the European region is in the hot seat. In response to escalating climate-driven health threats, including emergencies, the WHO Regional Office for Europe launched the Pan-European Commission on Climate and Health, PECCH, a bold new initiative to confront one of the defining health challenges of our time. The PECCH brings together 11 commissioners from across the WHO European region. They bring a rich diversity of experience at the helm of political and scientific national and international institutions and organizations. Together, they will deliver recommendations for actionable solutions at the intersection of health and climate. Through its public and expert hearings, the PECCH will also actively engage with representatives from other regions to work together on shared solutions. Especially important will be the involvement of small and island member states, which are often the first to bear the brunt of the climate crisis. From reducing waste to building energy-efficient facilities to saving lives through heat health early warning systems, this commission will explore a wide range of new and existing health sector solutions. At a global level, nearly half of humanity, 3.6 billion people, already lives in areas highly susceptible to climate change. Meanwhile, 80% of the population in the European region is expected to live in urban areas by 2030, making our cities and towns the front lines in the fight against climate change. In spite of the mounting evidence of the current and projected existential threat that climate change poses to our societies, political action, including within the health sector, struggles to match the urgency and scale of the response required to keep people and the planet safe.
Do you want to keep learning English with the news? If you do, put let's go, put let's go in the comments. And of course, make sure you like this lesson, share it with your friends, and subscribe so you're notified every time I post a new lesson. And you can get this free speaking guide where I share 6 tips on how to speak English fluently and confidently. You can click here to download it or look for the link in the description. And here's another lesson I know you'll love. Watch it now.